The Icons of Real Estate podcast. Are you ready to learn the proven money-making secrets from top-producing Icon agents? Ready to skyrocket your business? This podcast is for you. Tune in every week with your host, Tomasz Fonseca, and find out how to implement proven strategies to 10 times your business. From $3 million to $30 million in just 12 months. Brought to you by the Masters at Real Estate Marketing, Arter SEO.
Welcome to the Icons of Real Estate. I'm Tim Calloway. We have a very special guest for you today, Nick Stageberg. Did I get it right, Nick?
Got it. Yeah.
All right, pretty close. With a Black Swan Real Estate, he helps high-income individuals in their need for passive income through real estate and or investing in real estate overall. How are you, Nick?
I'm doing fantastic. How about you, Tim?
It's a great day. It's Friday Fun Day, and I'm looking forward to this. So.
Awesome.
I got a little bit of your backstory. I did my due diligence, of course, obviously before we had you on the show. This is Icons of Real Estate. So you've done some great work. As a matter of fact, I'm impressed with how much you have to offer. On top of that, impressed with what you do for the community. So I thought maybe we just get started with the beginning. How did you get started? And I believe you work with your spouse as well.
Yeah, I work full time with my wife. When people get on the phone with us, that's always the first or the last thing they ask is, you're not really that in love with your wife, right? Or how do you work with your wife every day, all day, and you don't get into fights and that kind of thing. Well, the truth is, you do get into fights. You never have a mediocre day. It's either a really good day or a really bad day when you're with your spouse 24/7. Yeah, we got into real estate the way I think a lot of people get into it. I had a whole career in technology. And on the side, we just started building up a real estate portfolio. I did some research on kind of, what's the best thing to invest in as we, put away some of our earnings from our day job. And about 12 years ago, we bought, our first, kind of purpose-built purposeful single family home investment. It was $35,000. It was the middle of winter. The home had been vacant for 6 years. It was a foreclosure, kind of after the '08, wave of foreclosures. And I remember it was, below freezing outside and there was no heat. So we were using like work lamps to get the house warm enough. And we were laying ceramic tile and painting. And my wife is there with me. We'd kind of work our day jobs. And then, from 6 p.m. until midnight, we'd be there, renovating this home, kind of watching YouTube videos, trying to figure out, how do you set a toilet and how do you replace a faucet and that kind of stuff. And then we rented that home out and then refinanced it to get our money back to do it again. And, the next year we bought 2 houses. The next year we bought 4 houses and, pretty soon a small apartment building. And then eventually we started working with investors. People would say, hey, what the heck are you guys doing every night, after work? I see pictures on Facebook or whatever of this, huge transformation you did. And people would come hang out and help just to be part of the party. We'd bring a pizza and people help paint and stuff. And eventually, people said, hey, we want to get involved. And so we started working with investors. And that's how we got to where we are today with, $1/3 of $1 billion in assets under management. And, we've got a private equity fund and all that. But really, that's how it started, just my wife and I on our hands and knees installing tile in a frigid winter evening and just doing that exact same thing over and over and over again, the exact same business model.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That really goes to show that it is about the work, right? I mean, at the end of the day, there's no shortcuts.
That's right.
You got to put the time in, you got to put the work in. And with, I think the two of you, what it sounds like, you had to put the education in.
That's right.
I mean, none of us who were involved in real estate ever got a blueprint handed to us and said, okay, go figure it out. I mean, here it is. But here's the beauty part, I think, Nick, with you, is that is kind of what you're offering. I mean, your experience bundled up and put into a fund. So tell me about the fund. Go ahead.
Yeah. So it's very different from any private equity fund I've ever heard of. This might sound like an overly bold vision, but our goal, if we're successful, is to maybe bend the moral arc of capitalism towards justice in some small way.
Wow.
our fund has no fees whatsoever. There's no acquisition fee or disposition fee or capital event fee or fee. There's usually kind of, a long menu of fees that come with these things. And the people that run the fund actually make more money from the fees than they do from the equity in the deal,
Yeah.
which is a pretty big disalignment of incentives, right? They
It's
actually
horrible.
make
It's horrible.
lose money.
Yeah.
So we only get any profit from the fund after our investors have gotten a full return of capital, and then it's a 50-50 split after that. We call it the lemonade stand model. If you open a lemonade stand with your kiddo, like that might be the business model you choose.
Yeah.
Of I'm going to buy some lemons and some sugar, and you run the lemonade stand, and I need to get my money back, and then we'll split the profits after that. And I mean, it's truly that simple. We target an indefinite hold period, which is kind of a luxury we can afford because of that no fee model. So in 12 years of doing this, we've never sold a property. We just keep refinancing them, keep improving them, and that allows us to deliver some pretty crazy returns.
Okay, so I'm sorry.
Not at all.
I just don't want to get too far away from
Yeah.
this question I have. So explain where you get the returns from for people who don't understand how that works if you're not turning property, or if you are turning property, if you're refinancing and building more. Explain how that return happens, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Great question. So let's run through a really simple example. This is a home run deal. So not every deal is like this, but we have had outcomes like this many times. So we bought new 52 apartments in August of 2021. So that was about 14 months ago. We bought it for $9.9 million. We did just insane improvements to the building. Physical improvements, not so much, but this was the peak of the pandemic. There was vacancy. They were still running a shuttle. We got rid of the shuttle service. They were paying $30,000 for internet service. We got it down to $10,000. We radically improved the net operating income of this building that was like really struggling in kind of the peak of the pandemic there. And then 6 months later, we got a new appraisal in March of this year. We got a new appraisal. That appraisal came in at $12.7 million. So we'd added almost $3 million, $2.8 million to the value of that asset. The bank came back and said, whoa, there's no way that you've actually accomplished this much in such a short period of time. They gave us a haircut on that. So they only gave us a 25% cash out refi. So, but all those proceeds, all the cash flow along the way, those refi proceeds went to our investor, and we're working on the rest of that cash out refi right now. We expect to be fully, kind of cashed out on that asset. We're hoping at this point we'd get a $15 million valuation on the property. So we've added $5 million of value to that property in 15 months time. Now at an 80% LTV, we would get a $12 million loan. So $8 million of that goes to repay the previous loan. That leaves $4 million left. $2 million repays the down payment that the investors originally put down on the property. And then there's $2 million left of profit from that refi. So $1 million of that goes to our investors. $1 million of that comes to Elaine and I. And that's it. I mean, I use that one because there's really, simple, convenient math on that particular deal. And I happen to be working on that deal today, working on that cash out refi.
I think that was a great explanation. Yeah,
that's just a really simple example. And now those investors, this is the cool thing. Those investors stay in that deal forever. So 15 years from now, we still plan to own that property. I mean, we will sell it at some point. If someone makes us an offer we can't refuse, or 100 years from now, I don't know what. But to date, we've never sold anything. So a million years from now, those investors will still be getting passive income from that asset. So that's the thing that really sets us apart. It's not a 5-year hold period, then the asset sells, and you get this check. But that check comes with a big tax bill. You have to recapture your depreciation. And a lot of syndicators, maybe they've got a 5-year hold period, but 18 months in, they hit their business plan and sell it so they can get some more fees, right? They get a fee when they sell that asset, and they get a fee when they buy the next one. So because we don't have those fees, we have zero incentive to turn over that asset. And then we think that really aligns incentives with the community as well. So I don't think it's a good thing for the people who live in that building, or for the community, for those apartment buildings to be turning over every couple of years. I think it's a good thing when there's one management company, one ownership group that owns that apartment building for 20 years. And when we do renovations, we don't refinish the laminate countertops, knowing that that's going to wear out in a few years, but we won't own it then. We put in the 3-centimeter quartz countertops that 30 years from now are still going to look amazing, knowing that we're going to get a return on that investment. So we do those deep value adds. And then we work on the assets that other people maybe are afraid to touch. So like one of our projects right now is it's a 100-year-old apartment building. And I mean, this is a tough story, but there's a woman living in one of the basement units of this building, and she'd been there for 2 years. And the previous management group, had really just kind of said, hear no evil, see no evil. And there was some bad things happening in that unit, and everyone knew it. And they couldn't evict her for non-payment due to the COVID eviction moratorium.
Sure.
And the day after we took over, we communicated with her. We said, hey, we're going to do a safety inspection on that unit. And we came in, and we were pretty aghast at what we saw. And we actually had to go back and get some buckets, and we removed a gallon of drug paraphernalia from that unit. And we said, hey, we identified some safety hazards in the unit. If we did inadvertently remove any of your personal property that you'd like returned, let us know. And we'll make sure law enforcement is present when we return that personal property, just so everything's handled appropriately. Just let us know if you want your personal property back. And by the way, we'll be back tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day. And by the way, here's a referral to a group that we work with that does drug rehab. We don't know if that's something that you might be in need of. We're here to support you. We love you. We care about you. And these kind of things do not happen on our watch, not in our property. We love you. We care about you, but we will not let people hurt themselves in our properties like this, within the bounds of the law. And it took 3 days. And she decided to vacate. She went to drug rehab. She's in drug rehab today. And we renovated that unit. And it's a beautiful 100-year-old apartment building in a historic neighborhood. And it was kind of a property with a reputation. And now it's a beautiful historic building. We've spent kind of a crazy amount of money renovating that building. But here's the crazy thing. Doing the right thing, it's actually a very profitable thing to do.
Right.
So we bought that building for $65,000 a unit, and that building's probably worth double that today. When you solve hard problems, society recognizes that and rewards that. So there's a lot of fun stories I could tell you like that. We shine the most when the problem is the hardest to solve, and we just lean into that problem and solve that problem. And 5% of our profit from the fund is a profit share to our staff. 5% of the profit from our fund is a charity give back. We hope that people who invest in our fund, they're talking to other syndicators and other investors and other fund managers and saying, hey, why do you guys charge all these fees? Isn't this a disalignment of incentive? And what's your give back? Warren Buffett, he kind of changed capitalism forever. He made it not okay to keep it. You have to give it away. And maybe we're a little delusional here. Maybe we're a little crazy, but what if we could change capitalism in some teeny tiny way that it's not even okay to keep it all before you die? You have to give at least a little bit of it away, or it's just not okay anymore. And just anything, whatever you want to give it to, just find some worthy cause to support. Right. And we think the world could be a better place for it. So that's a fun story there. Yeah.
Yeah, that one great story with a great end result. And two, I've always kind of lived by, I don't know how much, I'm not going to really get into a religious discussion, but I was raised with a for others mentality due to the Jesuits. And so that to me is part of that mentality. It's once you wake up one day and you realize a for others mentality, so much comes back to you. Now, you don't do it for that reason, because there are plenty of people that have for others mentality that don't have a dime to their name, and that's okay too. But when you're in the business of dollars and cents and profit, I started in 1992 packaging REITs, for Bear Stearns. So I'm very familiar with kind of the processes that you've had to go through over time, the pass through of it and how all that works. But definitely in your situation, because you have so much control, whereas Wall Street doesn't, if Wall Street could adopt some of these principles, I think they'd be better for it. But instead, darts beat the pros. Why do I need a fund manager that's going to charge 1.5% a year of $1 billion to be wrong? Yep. So I love what you guys are doing. It makes so much sense. So let's talk about, is it accredited investors only?
Yeah, so it's a Reg D
Reg D.
506C
Okay.
fund, so accredited investors only, and 100K minimum on that fund. We have that open. I don't know when this podcast goes live. We've got 7 million out of 30 million left in Fund 2 right this second. We've kind of used the same business model over and over again. Maybe I'm a bad salesperson at creating scarcity or whatever, but we'll raise this fund, fill it, and then probably do the exact same thing sometime next year. So feel free to get in now if you can, but you can always get in later. So
Yeah, fantastic. Sounds like you guys will always keep this going, so there's
that's
no
the goal.
reason. Yeah, hopefully there's no reason not to. So excuse me. I'm gonna go ahead and go here because it was brought up. Who handles what? I mean, you guys are a team in your personal life and you're a team in business. What's your end, what's her end, and how do you divvy it up?
Yeah, so the joke is that my wife raises the money and I spend the money. She's usually the one on podcasts and doing speaking engagements and stuff. It's an honor to join you here on the podcast today. She manages. We have kind of separate verticals within the company. So she manages our accountants, legal, tax, bookkeeping. So if you can split a company typically into a couple different verticals, you've got sales and marketing, operations, and finance and accounting. So she owns that finance and accounting vertical. I own the other two verticals in the company. I do more the day-to-day operations of the company. Another way to think about that is maybe that my wife does sort of the asset management level work, and I do the property management level work. So I would say she's above me on the org chart in terms of like the capital stack or however you want to think about that. But I'm very much the CEO of the company and run the company day to day. That's a critical thing when you have a husband and wife leader of a company. We have 23 full-time employees, I think, right now, and probably 100 people doing something somewhere for us today. They all have to know who their boss is, and it can't be a situation of like, oh, I'm going to ask Nick this question. I'm going to ask Elaine this question over here, hoping I get a better answer or something. It has to be, crystal clear who's in charge. It can never be a situation of one person, countermanding the other, and that's tough. That's tough in a marriage. It's tough in any business partnership. But Elaine and I very much believe in having one person in charge is always better than having two of anybody, anybody in charge.
Right.
And so we have very clear cut, kind of boundaries there. And then I'd say Elaine is very much kind of the leader of our household, so like I run the business. I kind of, call the shots here. She has kind of a veto authority if there's something she really disagrees with, and then kind of flip flop. So at 5 o'clock, I say, hey babe, like, what does my calendar look like for this evening?
Yeah.
Like, what is your plan for our life? Now that we're switching over to night and weekend mode, and I just do my best to kind of show up as my my 100% authentic self for my family when I'm not working, and my wife kind of runs the show there, and we've got. People ask, we've got four young children, 7, 5, 2, 6 months, and one more on the way. And they say, how the heck do you do that? We might have more people working in our household than we do at our company. It feels like. Just an army of really amazing help to keep the wheels on the bus and make sure that the house is clean, dinner's cooked, every kid has all the attention they need and can get to all the different swimming lessons and piano lessons, and there's a small fleet of vehicles involved, and you just I think if you run your household with the same sort of rigor that you run a business, you can lead a really big, cool life where it's all about quality. How can I create the most magic experiences and get the most quality time possible? So that's another question people ask. What the heck does a day look like when you're in a situation like that? And it's just a lot of rigor and having a tremendous amount of help to keep the wheels on the bus with our household.
Wow, that's fantastic. I always kid around. I have 4 children as well, but mine are in their 20s, all of them, and so like 22 to 29. And I always say I'm going to start a podcast, the Parents of 4 Children podcast, because there's just, you don't see that as much, but it does. It literally can take an army to, especially when they're staggered like yours are and mine were and still are. But it's a lot of work, for sure. So a couple more questions and we'll start winding it down and you can enjoy that weekend. But first and foremost, what are if I could fix anything for you, I had my magic wand, and I could just fix one problem you had on the business side, not the personal side, but on the business side, what would that be? Anything
Hmm.
that's kind of nagging or kind of you have difficulty with?
That's a really high quality question. I like high quality questions.
Yeah.
I guess we're at a moment in flow right this second where it feels like we kind of have all the ingredients we need. There's not a limiting reagent in that chemical reaction. Showing my science background there.
Yeah.
I just need time, so we've got a bunch of acquisitions lined up. We've got, capital that's ready to go. We've got an amazing team to kind of operationalize those assets. It's just time, just more hours in the day, which,
Can't do that.
everyone shouts at God and says,
Yeah.
I need more time. And God shouts back, no, I need more of you. I need
Right.
you to show up. And so maybe I need to meditate on that for
Yeah.
just, I guess, probably hiring more people.
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. How do you find investors? I guess that's one question. Usually that's usually something I hear, well, yeah, I
Absolutely.
need more investors. And if I
Yeah.
could get more investors, I could do more deals and, on and on. How do you find your investors, I guess?
Yeah. So, a lot of groups, they'll do, ten or $30,000 a month in Facebook ads and Google ads and stuff. We don't have an advertising spend to speak of. We love to go out on podcasts with,
Yeah.
finding, listening to a few episodes of show that we really, respect and feel like there's some alignment there. And just kind of doing, teaching and speaking. We have our course. It's 100% of the revenue goes to charity from that course, and it's a pay what you can model. So sometimes people will check out that course, and we joke, we call it the cookbook. So you can read the cookbook, and here's how you could reproduce this recipe in your own home if you wanted to, in your own home market.
I
Maybe
love
you
it.
read the cookbook and you're like, yeah, I just want to go to the restaurant. And that's the private equity fund, because our course is basically our operations manual for our team with our fund. So that's one way that we get to know investors, but ultimately just having calls. So if you go to meetblackswan.com, you can block a call on my calendar, my wife's calendar, and just whatever way we can provide you with value. Again, I'm a poor salesperson, but we don't ever do any cold calls or really
Right.
any outbound marketing. We just kind of put ourselves out there, and like sometimes we have interesting calls, sometimes they're not very interesting calls. But really we just kind of just put ourselves out there, and wherever there's just alignment. Like sometimes you talk to someone for 10 minutes and you just kind of feel that, like, it just clicks. It's like, man, I really like this person. Like I get them, they get me. And whatever kind of comes from that comes from that. And there's some people where, people reach out to us, hey, like we recently built a school. We found an abandoned office building, a 40,000 square foot office building over the summer. We were working with parents and teachers, and we were ripping out carpet and painting walls, and the school just opened here like 4 weeks ago. It was kind of a scrappy young startup school. They're in the basement of a 70-year-old church building in a fraction of this floor space. And so they've increased their enrollment 40% in 2 weeks since the new facility opened. And like, I had no idea what was involved with like doing this. I just said, I'd love to build a school. Like, I like this organization. I want my kids to go to school here, but this is kind of like a creepy dungeon environment. The campus could leave something to be desired. What does it look like to build a school? So I just like, put that out there, and someone might contact me and say, hey, I'd like to build a school. Do you have any pointers on that? And I don't know, just neat connections come about, and connections from those connections. And that's how we meet pretty much all our investors, is just by
Nice.
referral and offering value any way we can.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, you mentioned a little bit how to get in touch with you. Do you want to kind of promote any other sites, any social media or website where people can find you?
Yeah, if you go to meetblackswan.com, that'll have just a short list of like a link to our Facebook group, our newsletter, our private equity fund, our course, just all the different ways that you can eventually connect with us. So yeah, you just go to meetblackswan.com and check it out.
Nick, it's been great having you on the program. This has been a great story. I mean, I'd love to check back in with you maybe 3, 6, 9 months down the road and see how
Love
things are
to.
going.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tim. It's been an honor.
Thank you. Have a great one.